Okay.
The tie of the day.
You know we're filling time if we're having a fashion change.
Okay. Okay. I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, April the 19th, 2011 to order. And we're moving down to item 3, which is the budget presentation on the Franklin Transit Authority. We'd like to take it.
We have representatives from Franklin Transit Authority here to present us. So come on up.
Okay, how's everybody doing?
Good.
All right. Well, in your packets, you will see the budget, and I just wanted to share some narrative items with you. I believe Mike has that for you. We are requesting $16,358 less from the general fund this year. The decrease is due to securing additional federal funding and increased efficiencies in service expansion. The grant funding, speaking of those federal funding, we have secured an additional $175,000 in 5307 funds, which can be used for capital, operating, and planning assistance, and also $110,000 additional funds in New Freedoms, which are funds to get ADA population to work. This is a 76% increase in grant funding for this next year over what we had last year. The grant funding will enable us to do many things, one of which will be planning and also expansion of the transit service without any additional cost to the City of Franklin's general fund. 53% of our operations costs are recovered by grant funding in this upcoming budget, and 90% of our capital costs will be recovered by grant funding. The good news also is that our grants are obligated for the next 2 years.
Good.
Operationally, we've had an 18% increase in TIDE, which is our transit on demand. And also 52% of our trips are transporting Franklin citizens back and forth to work. So you will see that breakout in that pie chart that gives you those figures. We've had a significant growth in our niche market service, which is our things like our Twilight Tide, Safe Rides Home for the different partnerships with the events in Franklin. Also have seen an increase in our training program for special needs school to work program, which we developed for our high school students entering the workforce that will depend on transit to get to and from work. Our proposed options for projected expansion, which we've been, like I said, the grants will come into play with that. We are looking at several different scenarios, one being Columbia Avenue, Highway 96, especially now that streetscape is completed. A historic route to serve the downtown historic venues, and upgrades to our Cool Spring service. One of the also good things we're going to be doing about our planning and research funds will be identifying our non-users. We know who our users are, but we want to identify who our non-users are so we can better serve the community as a whole. Franklin Transit has been included in the 2035 Regional Transportation Plan as voted on by the mayors of the region. So that is a good coup for the service. Also working alongside MPO and RTA and TDOT, Franklin Transit Service has been identified as a part of the regional expansion of connectivity for the transit services throughout the area. And also because Franklin made the investment and has made the investment in the transit service, it has opened up Franklin to be possibly available to additional federal funds, and that's through the Partnership for Sustainable Communities. It's a partnership between the Department of Transportation, HUD, and the EPA. And communities with transit, like Franklin, have positioned themselves in the region because of affordable housing, supporting public transit, those things. And this will be something that it has placed Franklin as a city to access federal funds that are destined to areas. So that is on the radar. as you all know, have invested in the ARA. Our ARA investments were the solar transit stops, which have, obviously they're very sustainable, but also have provided safe transit stops without any additional cost as far as electrical is concerned. TDOT has recognized us as, City of Franklin, with the transit service, and so it's a National Area NPO for our sustainability contribution with the transit service. And obviously expanding the connectivity, we've been able to do that with the bikes and greenways through all of our fixed route buses now have bike racks, and so you will see that. So we have been able to do more with less. You have a couple of slides that I think are on this back wall, just to kind of give you a quick snapshot of the past 3 years. We are requesting less this year from the general fund than we have in the past 3 years, and you will see we have gone down each year, but this year it's 42% of our budget. And that is also reflected in this snapshot, which gives you the local, state, and federal funding history of the past 3 years. So, if anybody, and I have to say that, as always, we appreciate your support. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to provide this service and manage it for the City of Franklin. And your staff is just incredible to work with. So, does anybody have any questions?
I want to compliment you on acquiring these additional grants. That shows that you aren't just resting on your laurels, that you're also looking for additional advantage, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Trying to think outside the box,
right.
and be creative. It's what creative funding.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, are any other questions or comments?
No.
What we'd ask if you could do, since Alderman Berger isn't here yet, if you could stick around, we can, when she comes back, we may see if she had any
has a question.
questions for you. Then we could just check in with that if you just
If
Here
she
she
may.
comes.
hang tight for just a little bit. She'll be here. in a
Oh,
minute.
good.
Here she
good.
is.
Okay. All right. Do you want to
But
just
stay
stay at the
put. Yeah,
table?
might as well.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, somebody's got to do something about traffic next time.
They should ride the bus.
If you're taking if you're taking
Should have the bus. Okay.
Well, I was in
Exactly.
Nashville. And Nashville
We actually have
traffic
now a line
was
that
not
goes-
moving.
That's right.
So sorry.
They just said they removed all bus service from Ward 1.
That wasn't my problem. Sorry.
What we've done, Alderman, is just to hear the transit presentation, and we were just about to say, if you had a specific question, I guess we didn't have questions, but if you had a specific question, they were willing to stay for a few minutes to see
Yeah.
if there's anything.
Yeah, I did. I have a question on transit. I had actually wanted to know, everything looked good. The numbers look great. Well, thank you. But under the grants and everything, said in 2002 improvement grants, we were able to return $128,000 to the general fund. And then I talked about the expansion and about the upcoming grants and funding that you're going to be seeking.
Right, we've acquired,
Get-
we
they've
already
gotten
have
them.
You already have them?
Yes.
Let me ask you, just help me understand, what kinds of grants are they what are they going to actually be doing? Because what are the stipulations on some of those grants?
Okay,
I mean,
well-
does it tie our hands in any fashion, you know?
The $175,000 is what's called 5307 funds, and it's used for capital, operating, and planning assistance. And then the $110,000 is New Freedom funds, which are dollars that we can use to apply towards getting ADA population to work. Allison, do you want to add anything
Okay.
else to that?
The New Freedom is specifically for ADA and going beyond what the ADA requires, which a lot of our Tide on-demand service does. So a good bit of our on-demand service we can maybe get back with that 110,000. And the 175,000 is actually the new bucket that we were able to acquire when we started maintaining the vehicles again, because you do contract the service. The city owns the vehicles, but you contract the service to be operated. We can actually bill 80% of 40% of those contract costs, which are operating, uniforms,
Okay.
everything it takes to operate the
Okay.
service. So that was kind of the newfound bucket.
All right, and I think, Debbie, you know that when we talked about this before, I know that we have the ability right now to do the niche markets. Do any of these grants, any of these things that we're dealing with federal government funds, tie our hands in reaching out to the niche market? Because before, remember, we had a problem with that. And I'm just wondering, from here on out, how do you see that? Do you see that we are going to be told again, we can't do this, we can't do that, we have to go through a third party?
With our charters, those are the charters, like for the brides and those kind of things that are straight charters. We do have to go through, Federal Transit changed those guidelines on us 2 years ago for everybody. So we have to abide by those. But as far as what we term our niche marketing, like we were just talking about earlier, the Twilight Tide with the, downtown Franklin events and the Safe Rides Home on New Year's Eve, which we started this past New Year's Eve. Those kind of things, that has actually grown. We've seen
And the Holly Trolley.
And the Holly Trolley, absolutely.
And we're still able to do those.
Right.
They can't come in and say, no more niche markets, or can we add to these niche markets?
Well, we've grown them this year. We've
Right.
actually grown them. And so, of course, our primary work is providing public transportation, but then we've been able to expand upon that in the after hours. And so as long as we're within these parameters, and they are very defined parameters, but right now we're staying within those. And like I said, we understand the charter regs that we have to abide by, and that's just not us. It's all.
So these parameters, does that, what I'm asking also, does those parameters, do they limit us from adding on to the niche market?
As long as we stay within those parameters, you know what I'm saying? We can grow it as long as we grow it within those parameters.
All right.
And so far, we've had great success with that this year. So, one good thing, as Allison was saying, this newfound pot of money has enabled us to increase, we've had a 76% increase in grant funding on this budget as opposed to last
I
year's.
saw that. It was quite a bit.
So,
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I wanted to ask about
Sure.
the grants.
And those dollars going forward, you have obligated through the next
2 years.
2 years.
Right, okay.
which in the state of things, that's a good thing.
It
Given
is.
what's going on, yeah.
And
So, and I have to say, Allison and Calvita have really just done amazing things with being creative and managing and seeking grants and managing what we have and thinking outside the box, so.
Okay. Actually, it's all I had.
Okay, thank you.
Very
Thank you.
good. So good timing.
You may go.
That's right. And so let's go back to item 2, then approval of the March 17 committee minutes.
move for approval?
Second.
Any comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no. And now, item 4 is the budget presentation for solid waste. And let's see, did Bev get the extra?
There should be at your place, there should be this handout.
Thank you.
There's a summary for you.
I'm going to steal that jacket.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to steal that jacket.
Oh, thank
I need that for Sunday.
Picture size.
Okay, what you have before you is our budget proposal for the fiscal year 2012. The highlights or the changes, basically we're asking overall for one new position. It would be a drop-off site attendant. Right now we have the BOPA drop-off, but we have applied through the county for a $250,000 grant for a household hazardous waste drop-off, as well as our BOPA drop-off. They would go together. So this would be someone that would be certified to handle hazardous waste, and we would also handle that year-round. We are asking to move a couple of people from our disposal division. One is our building maintenance worker to administration, and then one of the solid waste crew foreman over from our disposal to our collection division to handle our commercial accounts. We do want to maintain that one of each of these positions are left vacant and unfunded. It's the assistant solid waste director position, one solid waste driver operator, one solid waste worker, one solid waste crew foreman, and one tractor trailer driver position this year. As far as capital, we're asking for a replacement of one of our side loader trucks. At this point, we're asking for one. I'm not going to promise y'all won't see me back in January asking for for another, but we are going to put that purchase off for the first 6 months of the year. We've put some work into one of our trucks, and we're hoping it'll hold out for the year. We are asking to replace one rear loader in our collection division, and then our disposal division, we're asking for one road tractor and one transfer trailer as replacements.
And what do we do with those replacements? We try to sell those? I mean,
We sell those
not
on-
replace, yeah.
We sell those on the GovDeals website.
We still do, okay.
Actually, we've just sold 5 pieces of equipment in the past, I want to say it was last week. And checking on that earlier today, we'd gotten back $136,000.
Oh.
Right at, So it does pay some, but it's not near what it's worth. What it's worth to us when we can use it every day. In terms of projects, grants, upcoming things, I mentioned the $250,000 grant from TDEC. We applied for that through Williamson County. And then we also want to look at the waste audit for our city facilities, as well as our, all of our own buildings, city hall, other fire halls, that kind of thing. Just see what else out there we can be recycling, as well as do an energy audit on our buildings at Century Court to see if there's anything we can do there to help us conserve energy, and our utility bills. Daily operations will continue just auditing and updating our routes to make sure we're as efficient as possible. And then financially, this will be the part that that'll take some explanation. Last year we increased residential rates. We did not increase commercial rates.
Nice.
We have not increased our tip fee at our solid waste transfer station since 2008. So this year, what we're looking at is increasing the tip fee at our transfer station scale from $35 a ton to $42 a ton, which is 20%, and adding a $2 per ton fuel surcharge.
How much?
$2. And if you remember, last year we experienced the great increase in landfill tip fees, landfill service fees. So we're not asking for the 25%, we're asking for 20%. We haven't raised our price to help cover those, those fees overall.
Our contract on landfill, is that a multi-year or is it renewable? I forgot how we
It
set up.
expires in December, I think, and I think we can renew one more
Next year,
year.
it was a 30-month to begin with, because we tied in the options for renewal up front, because we wanted to make sure we had that for as long as we could get it, and it grows with an inflationary calculation.
Okay, so there is a possibility that that would go up in December with,
It likely will.
What's the
It went up,
inflation
what,
bet?
50
Still.
It went up
For instance-
50 cents. It went from $25 to $25.50 in January.
okay.
So it went up a couple percent, not huge, but went up a little bit, and we'll expect something similar to that in the,
In December of
Yes.
of this year.
January 1 of 2012. And basically, the $2 per ton fuel surcharge would be in effect until you would see the price of diesel go back to $2.50 a gallon at the pump.
And at this point, these are the proposals we're looking at. You'll see
We'll
something
have to-
more formally developed in terms of what we might do from an administrative recommendation. But this is some of the thinking, when you consider the fact that for that element of our solid waste services, we've not changed that fee at all in over 3 years, and we have absorbed a 25% increase in the tip fee, and not done anything on the commercial side related to that. So it's probably time, maybe a little past time, to take a look at that. And so that's in a general sense, what we're looking at.
So on the, do we have an upper limit on if the diesel fuel goes past a certain price that we would also add to the,
What Becky's done is she's calculated what it really costs us per ton to take the trash to Murfreesboro.
okay.
So the $2 is what we need on a round trip above and beyond what we were paying in 2008.
But it's the kind of thing you may want to look at going forward in terms of what fuel prices do from this point.
Right.
And we do part of an annual review, and we look at fees and see where we are versus on fuel and on different elements of the cost.
But we're not locked in
I
that we
think it's
couldn't
a-
do that and say, you know, if it goes to 5.5.
And this is a
For
proposal
diesel.
that came from us as a team to say, hey, this is an option or this is an opportunity. So if you said, hey, I think it should be $5 a ton for a fuel surcharge, or once fuel reaches $3.50 a gallon, it should be $4. This is just a starting point to say, hey, this is something that really makes sense, because this is what a lot of other companies are doing. And for us, we haven't asked for anything in terms of reimbursement or anything in terms of boosting the revenue as far as tip fee at the scale house or fuel, and both have gone up considerably in the past couple of years.
Well, there's a pretty big request on transfer from the general fund, so, in here, so.
And that is the
That-
number we're continuing to
That's
work
right,
on.
that's, I was gonna say, that's the.
Remember, we're at the request stage still,
Yeah,
so we're still
exactly.
working on that. But I will say, 2 years ago, it was over $3 million. And again, still at the request stage, it's down to 1.8. This is a number that we know we need to continue to drive down, and has been part of our focus to bring those costs in line with what we're collecting from our customers, essentially, as well.
Because the residential customers have had a fairly substantial increase in that time period.
Right.
That's one reason that we could move
Yeah,
from that.
we've gone to that well a couple times in the last 2-3 years. I don't expect us to recommend that at this point for this year. We may need to look at it again to take that final step, but we're not looking to recommend that right now. Probably the place we will look is at this commercial, and Becky gave you one example of how we might approach that.
Now, let me ask you, when it said the proposal is to increase the fee from $35 to $42 per ton, and that is then plus the extra $2?
And then the fuel would
Yes.
be an additional,
That's what I
element.
read it to be there. So-
Essentially $44 per
That's
ton
right.
until the price of fuel came back to $2.50 at the pump.
and one of the things we looked at is we use about 2 gallons of fuel per ton for that transportation.
2 gallons of
So
fuel.
2 gallons of fuel
that's really,
per ton when we take a load to get it back, go back and forth.
If we get 5
Gee.
gallons a ton, we're excited. We've done something. Couple of the other options that we had looked at. Were there any other questions on that one?
come up, please.
Will you identify yourself?
What? Is the $700 per load, does that include the gas, the fuel, or is that just what they charge us when we take a load to Murfreesboro?
Average trucks hold 20 tons, and we pay Murfreesboro $25.50 a ton,
To
just
tip.
to get rid of it, just for them to take it.
Okay.
And then we have the truck and the trailer maintenance, replacement costs. We also have the person. We also have their benefits, and then we also have fuel.
And
So
insurance.
it's- And insurance. What else am I?
You got it.
Okay.
Does that come to $700? Because I heard that figure at some point.
Well, it's 500 plus to just tip it.
Is
On
Straight
average,
tipping.
yes.
Well,
But some, some loads are gonna be a little heavier, some loads are gonna be a little lighter. Sometimes we're gonna get right into the landfill, get our load off and take, and get out of there.
Okay, that's the figure I quoted. Some folks had asked, and I didn't know whether the fuel was included in that.
On average.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So how many loads do we take per year again?
Per year, it's anywhere from 15 to 20 a day. And that just depends on what we're taking in.
Do the math for me. How many a year?
Oh,
15, well, what are you talking about here? What is it? What do you want?
it's, say 17 loads.
17 loads at what?
I'm looking for the number.
Per
700.
day,
They do
200
700
250 working days.
250
250
workers.
workers.
A load.
700 a load, and how many loads?
20 a day.
Yeah.
20 a day. Oh, wait a minute, 700.
250 times a year.
Yeah, right.
She's doing this on her telephone.
700 times 14,000. But,
350,000? Is that about?
so what are we talking about as far as,
Somebody said 168,000 a month.
well, whoa, we need to do more recycling, don't we?
Recycling is a good
Helpful.
choice. It's very helpful.
I'll draw your attention to one of the line items that I think is interesting to look at. On the second page of the summary, there's the landfill and biosolids management services. So that's about your fourth line on page 2. Look at that in terms of our actual in 2010. This is where we pay the tip fee. 1.5 million we spent in 2010. We budgeted 1.5 million this year. That's considering the 25% increase in the tip fee, and we're projecting to come in at 1.3. And we're projecting next year, even with the inflation, 1.35. So you look at that, we're below where we were a year ago at a lower rate, and I think that's the direct result of what we're doing in recycling and the diversion that we're doing. Can we do better? Yeah, we want to continue to push that, and we've seen good participation, around 40%. Our diversion by weight is not as
right.
good as we'd like it to be, and that was part of the
Yeah.
message you heard a couple weeks ago, and that's one of the things we need to keep stressing. But this is kind of the bottom line where you see the impact of doing what we're doing in diversion. Had we not been doing that, that number's probably up in the 1.6, 1.7 range, if I would have to guess, if we didn't do recycling, just looking at the increase in tip fee and what's going on if we weren't being aggressive in diversion.
And the tonnage, the volume that we bring in.
Yeah, the volume that we have overall.
And that is a clear indication of recycling works. And remember, that number is only the landfill fee.
Yeah, yeah.
There's other
Things-
benefits.
Well, yeah, sure. I was just talking to some people on my ward the other day, and I said, they said, "Oh, you guys aren't going to raise our rates again this year, are we?" And I said, "Are you recycling?" And two of them said yes, and one said no. And I said, "I'm not raising yours, but I'm raising yours." And he says, "What?" And I said, "If you all don't recycle more," I said, "we're not paying for it, it's what, $20, $21 now, or $22 per household, isn't it?
It's around $20 a
Here,
household to do
it's around
solid
per-
waste.
Per week, or per month?
Per month.
And we're charging, what, are we 12 or?
15.
We were 15. Boy, I'm behind times, that's right, 15. But, so I said, we're not even covering the cost, but I was trying to tell them, if we recycle more and get less taken to the landfill, if we keep taking less and less, then our tipping fees, I was talking to him about tipping fees, and he's like, "Man, I didn't realize all that." And that's the problem. A lot of the people out there don't realize that solid waste fees are going to go up for them if they, they can help lower those. They can help keep them steady if they just knew how important the recycling is to get that out of the landfill.
And they're a direct relation to each other.
Exactly. So, anyway, I had a question too.
I'm
but-
sorry.
No, you go ahead when you're done.
No,
I'll
I
ask
just,
mine.
I want to, before we finish, there's one more question, but it's not, it's sort of related, but I don't want to interrupt.
Wild guess, how much has recycling saved us in the 8 months that we've been doing it?
6 months.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
Wild guess.
With the calculator?
This is worse than those college
I-
entrance.
Where's the music?
I'm interested to hear what her number is, because I have a number.
Probably around right at $220,000.
That's exactly what I would have
I would
said.
say closer to
Becky,
300
so good.
would be my guess.
Well, just, and that's a low number. I'm telling you a low number because I'm hoping at one point I'll come to you and have the real number and say, hey, this is exactly, and it's more than what.
Oh, we absolutely will do that for you, and that's been the
Yeah,
intent all
that's the
along, that
next
this
step.
was a program we needed to track, and Becky and her team have been tracking direct costs as well as the benefits, and we'll show you that, and one of our goals is at the 1-year mark to really give you a good snapshot of what the program has done. We think it's done a lot of good, but we want to keep pushing to make it happen, and it's a great way for people like Alderman Berger pointed out to help control the cost that impacts the customer directly.
Well, and on the front page of this, you'll see the summary for the year. The bottom numbers are
Right.
BOPA collection.
That's good.
The top section is for what we've collected here, as well as private haulers, and then what we've diverted. Whether it's been wood chips that we've ground from brush we collected curbside, or yard bags we've taken to the street department compost site, or whatever it's been.
We also need to promote this BOPA, because instead of having to wait for something that
Yeah.
I was-
happens twice a year,
I said to somebody
you
this week.
have this opportunity during the week to go do this, and not keep it in your garage, and not, you know,
Becky, give them
that's a real service.
We were talking about that this morning. What's your average traffic in there?
Average traffic is right at 630, 650 cars a month.
That's great.
And that's
Good
why
number.
we didn't intend to have a full-time person, but our building maintenance worker has kind of become our full-time. So we really need him back to do what we need him,
Victim of
his normal
success,
stuff.
yeah.
And I mean, when you look at 190,860 pounds of electronics, or
I mean, it's crazy.
180,864 pounds of paint. It's phenomenal what's out there.
Is there any profit from all that?
We're actually pretty much breaking even right now, but I will tell you that we take the batteries, most of those are automotive batteries. We do take those over to the B. Miller Recycling. They do pay us for them. The oil and the antifreeze are pumped by Safety Clean. They're under contract with our fleet maintenance shop, and they come and pump that and do pay us for that. The paint is processed at Williamson County Landfill for recycling. And then the electronics, we work with Creative Recycling in Nashville. It's a company that Metro uses, and basically it breaks even pretty much, but anything with lead in it is like a 10-cent charge or a 5-cent charge, and then anything that doesn't have the lead, basically a monitor versus anything else. We pay a little, they pay a little, and it usually balances out.
Because I don't know how many people have been to, like, these electronics recycling thing. You get up there and there's another 500 people,
Yeah.
and you wait in line for
It's
2.5
really great.
hours.
Yeah.
As
And
I
this week got it
Anytime you
available.
want.
6:30 to 2 Monday through Friday.
There you go.
I didn't have the hours, but I did. I did say you can do this anytime.
You did good.
What was the time, 6:30?
6:30 to 2, yes, ma'am. Our scale house opens at
I didn't
6.
remember so early.
Yeah.
I want to know
Stop
what
in
we're
before
doing
work.
with all, I don't even know, we can't even track these, and there's no way to take them out of the trash, is there? But what about these darn light bulbs? 1 or 2 light bulbs didn't matter. When you get all these light bulbs being recycled with all the mercury in them, I mean, I'm getting a little concerned about this because I don't know if anybody's really addressing this issue.
Right now, Home Depot will take those, not the long fluorescent bulbs, but the home bulb, and the compact fluorescent, and they'll actually recycle them. Take them to their customer service desk.
It's right there.
I've actually done some research on a product called the Bulb Eater. It's what it's called, for lack of a better term. And basically, it does cost some money to do it, but some communities are charging per bulb or per household a certain amount. And we're not opposed to that. It's just something I'm getting more information on and something I'm already working on to see if it's feasible or if it's something that we want to work on. One of the big things is with our transfer station permit and with our BOPA permit, we have committed to the state of Tennessee that we will not take mercury. So we don't take mercury thermostats and we don't take mercury light bulbs and that kind of thing. However, if we are chosen for the household hazardous waste grant, then mercury becomes part of something we could handle and accept.
But how do we know? There are those bulbs are in the trash that you get down there. So what do? You can't go through all that to find those bulbs.
No, ma'am.
So we have
It'll
those
be a
bulbs
PR, we'll have
going
to,
in there.
once this hazardous waste is available, then we'll let the citizens know that
Put
that's.
these darn light bulbs up, but nobody addresses this problem.
I'll tell you, the light bulbs and the medical waste are two big things in our industry that are a big, they're hot topics, but they're also big things that we're trying to address as a whole, because there's really no good solution.
Well, the only other question I had for you was, are we continuing to look with other communities down the road in the future for landfill, to address our landfill?
Sure.
Yes. Yes.
That's the
We're-
biggest.
Are we aggressively
That's the
looking at
biggest
that? I mean, more so than we did 2 or
Well,
3 years
we're the
ago?
community that has started the discussion,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
Right.
And have asked some other folks to participate in it with us, so
Do we have any of that going on?
we're working on that issue.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. What about other comments? Or? Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thanks for this, too.
Next is the presentation from MIT.
That.
Come on up, come on up.
Okay, afternoon. Start with personnel. We have unfunded 3 positions, request unfunded 3 positions for the next year. One being the Enterprise Application Manager, which was frozen last year, also the Database Manager and Financial Application Manager. In the place of those, request a DBA consultant for 1 year and a tech writer from July through November for 6 months. We have those 2 people are here now, was approved for the budget through this year to replace those vacant positions, and so we're asking for that for next year. The tech writer is updating documentation. A lot of our systems have never been documented, so that person is updating those systems as well as the move from Hanson 7 to Hanson 8 to make sure we've got full documentation on that so people can pick that up. So that's personnel.
And what was the other one, tech writer and what?
Database, DBA.
Yeah.
We ran an ad for DBA and didn't find a suitable candidate. We also ran an ad for financial application manager and found nobody that was qualified for that position either. So we're having to go out, pay a little bit more for those positions. Operations, this is the big one. Is anything else on personnel?
I think personnel's okay.
Okay. Okay, operations, if you want to open up that big character that we've got.
You got it.
This year, IT is assuming software maintenance for police and fire. And that's $250,000 that will be added to our budget.
So that's a shift, had been previously budgeted in police and fire, and we're moving it into IT to kind of more centrally manage that.
We've had some increases in software maintenance. One is based on the fact that we're now over 60,000 population. So our GIS software, the annual maintenance has gone from 35,000 to 56,000. So that's an increase of 21,000 over last year. That Should be in there, right? Did you not get this?
Should be in there.
Yeah.
This right here.
Well, it should be in this. Right there.
It's on the
I
back.
think that,
Okay.
I think ours is,
That one, I have it.
yeah.
GIS is used, the Ezra software is used by all departments, and it's a very critical application that we utilize. Our 800 megahertz radio system, we've got an increase of 35,000 in software for this year. It goes from 108 to 143. We have come out of our 5-year agreement with Motorola, and the price protect that we had for 5 years in our contract, we're now having to pay the current rate on that. So that's the increase from that. We have we'll have approximately 700 radios we've estimated through next year. So that includes the 3 tower site maintenance, 24/7, 365, as well as the depot for radios. Is what we do now. We email Motorola, they send us a shipping label, we put it in a radio in the box, ship it to them, they fix it, send it back. So there's no additional cost to us for that. The next increase we have in software support is our voice over IP phone system. This year we installed this in all of our locations, so everyone is on this system. We also added the police building, and we added several radios, and we had to add a couple of devices in that facility. We've also upgraded some of the software capability that for that system. So we will be realizing a $20,000 increase, $36,000 to $56,000. And one item that we ask for every year, and we're asking for it again this year, is a fly to update our GIS data. Our data was last updated in 2005, and it really needs to be updated at least every 5 years. So what we're proposing is $40,000 this year and next year. The reason being, they'll do the fly when leaves are off in December, January, February. We'll get the data in probably June, July of next year, and then update it from that. We'll be doing this in conjunction with Brentwood. Their cost for their portion is $25,000 because they're smaller than us. And again, they'll pay $25,000 for 2 years. And in addition to this, Stormwater has put in $80,000 in their budget to cover the additional costs for this. Most of what our stormwater data is the data that we really need to get updated the most, and that's the reason that we've asked them to help us out in that, and so that is not in my budget, but that'll be in that is in their budget, I understand.
Fred, when you talk about data updates on this, what does that all include?
We have 117 layers of data in our GIS system, so you have from the physical structure itself, but the what it sets on, what's underneath the layers, and what are the contours, and so it's what they'll do. The fly, when they do it, they just continually fly and photograph. They'll photograph at a low angle, they'll photograph at like 1,200 square feet, and they just keep flying and flying until they get the data that we use. If you were to look at our data now, you're probably not going to see the Nissan building, or you're not going to see the structure around the Nissan. So that's because it's so old. Yeah, we after the flood, the Corps of Engineers requested that we send our data to them, so we sent all of it to them, and they basically couldn't use it because it was so old. But a developer will come in and they'll want all the layers, and if we provide everything for them, we'll charge them anywhere from $300 to $1,000 for that information. So because it's pretty intense, but the development community is one of the areas that definitely needs this data, and of course they need up-to-date data, so we need to provide it to them there. Yep.
It helps our operations, but it also helps us partner with developers and looking at what comes next.
2005, we paid $170,000 to get that, so we have been able to work out some different arrangements with, there are some local people now that do this, and so that's the estimated cost that we'll have in this. Of course, we'll have to bid it and that kind of stuff, but Brent, that's what, when we met with Brentwood, both our GIS departments work together. The county's not participating because they say they don't have the money, so. Normally, when we do this thing, there'll be a county-wide fly, and then we give them our data, they give us the data that we need. But this will be our UGB area also. It's not just the 41 square miles, it'll be
That's
the
good. Yeah, we need
70,
that.
whatever,
I was gonna
70,
say we
71
can't leave
square
that
miles.
out. But we are partnering with Brentwood to do that, so cost-wise and
So
everything.
it helps spread the cost.
The other item I have is we have a system called CASE, K-A-C-E. We installed this system almost 5 years ago. This really saves us a position. What it does is it downloads software updates to our 450 computers. Last Tuesday, we downloaded 19 updates to Windows. And it started about 9 o'clock at night, and people came back the next morning. They didn't know it happened other than they got a little flag that says your computer's been updated. Also, we use this system to do some monitoring of if someone tries to bring something on the system that they're not allowed. The system handles that. And one of the other things we do with this system, at 9 o'clock at night, where we can, we turn off computers. Those computers do not come back on until the user comes in whenever and reboots the computers. There are a few computers we can't turn off. You know, of course, dispatch is obviously one area, but there's a couple in revenue management that we have to leave up because of software constraints. But that saves us, that's our contribution to the green movement. But it does save electricity, it does save the computers. So we're able to get a little more, utilization out of those from that. I'm proposing that we upgrade this system. It's a hardware and software upgrade, and we're 3 years behind, and that cost us $9,500. Other localities around us are using that system also. The city of Columbia, after they came up and saw what we were doing with it, they bought it. So, like I said, it does save us a person, because we don't have to go around to all those computers and update the software and that. And as we move to Windows 7, Windows whatever else is coming on, we can download that. Same thing, we download our Microsoft Office and other software routines and stuff. Hanson gets downloaded to user computers using the same thing. We're asking for desktop and laptop replacements in our department of approximately 12,000. We haven't updated our systems internally for the past 2 years, so that's an item that we're there. So, you want to open up that monster and show them what's involved?
The computer services?
Yeah, the 925 or whatever it is. To show you a little bit of what our maintenance is.
It's open now, Fred, on this screen.
It's on the back.
Just back behind you.
That gives you an idea of what we're doing maintenance-wise, so that's all departments.
Those are the programs that the department supports. But that backs up all of our operating departments in one way or another.
So essentially, police department, fire that used to have to pay for part of this now.
It was separately budgeted.
Yes, no, never mind.
And then we just brought it in, consolidated it.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions on operations? Capital, there's a couple of items we have on capital. We're looking at increasing some disk storage needs, also at the police department as well as here. We've started a more sophisticated in-car camera system, and we may need to store more of that data than we currently are. Currently, we're keeping 90 days of that data. So this is, if that requirement comes forward, then we need to add some disks out there. We're also looking at, when we have the district attorney wanting to come in and look at some of our casework on some of those films and stuff, we need to sort of isolate it from our other system, so we'd have a different computer set up that would enable them to access that. Hopefully that will cut down on our interaction with them of having to meet with them, copy stuff for them, and take it to their office and back and forth. So that's something we're looking at. I mean, additional agreements will have to be worked out before we do this. It's not something that police and IT are going to do, because we'll have to get legal involved to make sure we're doing it correctly and they're okay with it and everybody's okay with it. So that cost is around $52,500 that we may have to do. We'll just have to, see as we go. Software request, we're asking for $32,000 for an intrusion protection system. What this system is that it sits outside of our firewall and to deter attacks that we have. What we do on a daily basis, and I have one here, this is one-day attacks that occur into our world. So we have to go out and check all these sites to make sure they're not coming in on us.
That's, what, 6-7 pages of,
It's usually not
Line
that
after line.
bad. A normal day is actually, well, hopefully a day is a day we don't have that, but a normal day, we'll only have maybe 20 of these. But these, the intrusion system will sit out and help knock some of this out. So that's what we're proposing. We've looked at 5 different systems, and what we have in place right now is called Ironport, and it blocks a lot of stuff today, but what Ironport will go out and the addition to the Ironport system, it will actually block the attacks that come from like Korea, China, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a piece in our security system that we're missing, and that's what we'd like. We'd like to get that appliance put in place. It is a hardware-software device. It's a small server, but there is some software involved in it also. The only other thing that we're asking is a couple of modules added to our WinSoft, which is project management software we implemented about a year ago. And one piece of this would enable the project leaders that are working on the projects to be able to invoice once they are satisfied with a particular segment of that project, to go ahead and do an automatic invoice that would go to the contractor, developer, whomever we're working with. That will free up somebody from having to pass it on to somebody else to say, well, now it's time to invoice these people, or it's time for them to invoice us, depending on whatever the project is. So way it would work is that we would send them an okay. We went out, we reviewed where you are in the project. Now you can bill us the $100,000 that you need to bill us. That will come in automatically, will flow into our AP system from this system, and should speed up the process of payment. It also gives us a little better audit trail. The other piece is also linked into WinSoft. It gives them, the system is not so user-friendly for the users right now, and there is a module that's added onto that will make it more of an internet-based system that they'll be able to see their project and also share that project with the other users. So, and then there's 5 pieces of SharePoint. SharePoint's another CRM system that we're using. It's a Microsoft system. But there's about $12,000 of that 66 that will tie the WinSoft into SharePoint. We plan to move next year to have a lot of our reporting and a lot of our documentation on SharePoint. Today, when Mike gets the financials ready, he pushes out to SharePoint. We go out there and look at it. So it's the same system. We're just tying more into it, from that. So that's pretty much what we're asking for.
And I'm assuming that on those things where you say it'll be easier to bill and invoice and things like that, there will still be checks on them.
Oh, it has to go to, the flow goes to finance before anything is generated from that. Right now, if we go out and do an inspection on this phase of whatever the project is, and we come back and say, okay, yep, that's done, we're satisfied, we approve it, then they'll send an email to them and say, okay, you can bill us now. Or the reverse of that, if we're actually doing a project and we want to bill somebody else, maybe like Joe's mulch he's selling, then if the reverse is there, then it would be the same way. So that it really gives us a little more control and
So
sort of,
you were saying that it gives you a better trail.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
One of the other things I want to highlight in terms of an accomplishment of the department and of the organization that we really, it goes silently, but we've really fully implemented a disaster recovery system now that we did not have in place. And that's something Fred and his team has done, and the board helped us do it with some investments over the last year or so, and we've really got that in place and had some protection that we did not have previously. And that's one of those things you just don't, we don't wake up thinking about because it's there and it's taken care of, but it's something we have. Unfortunately, Fred wakes up thinking about it, but we do have that in place.
That was going to be my next question, because I was interested in, different industries have different solutions for data backup. Is ours hardware in-house, or is it on a server or off-site?
Our DR site
do
is
we have
Fire
both?
Station 6. And we also, every Saturday night, we send all of our public safety software to Phoenix.
Okay, so we do have off-site.
But our DR site, what occurs now when an update is done here, when somebody creates a payroll check or AP check or whatever, 5 minutes later that image is sent to Fire Station 6. We have fiber connection between the two. In addition, we have at the new police building, we have some backup there to where we're backing up certain components of our public safety data there. So we're actually, from a backup perspective, Fire Station 6, PD, and then, like I say, our public safety software goes to the complete public safety goes to Phoenix every Saturday night.
Because I was interested to make sure we had some kind of off-site backup, and I wasn't sure about that. I couldn't remember.
We also we turn the system off here and go to backup, and we don't tell them when we do it. They don't know we're doing it. But a lot of times they're actually working on the DR site and not here. So that's the way.
my question.
We run it, we test it every month. So same thing with our 800 megahertz. We will actually shut down and go to, we'll shut one of the towers down, go to 2 towers. And see if anybody notices.
Wow, that's good.
Very good.
Right.
What about some other comments or questions?
You just have to go get me one of those ties, right?
Yeah, I know.
Pales in comparison.
Very boring.
We'll swap. See what happens.
You got that in Guatemala, didn't you? That looks like a Guatemalan top.
Thank you, Fred.
I thought maybe the kids down there made it for you.
Our next budget presentation is from Human Resources and Risk Management.
Risky business, these people.
Good afternoon.
I think
Our budget is pretty straightforward. If it's okay with you, I will just go over the changes.
Please.
They are, and also the changes are highlighted in our narrative, in our notes and objectives. Salary and wages, there is a minimal increase that we're asking for. We want to reclassify one of our HR technicians to a benefits analyst. Tracy has currently been helping in our benefits area with insurance. Our employee population has grown, and with the new legislation, it's required a lot of updates and changes. So Tracy has been helping in that, and we would like to reclassify her to that position in the upcoming year and replace the HR tech. So that's the change in the salaries and the wages. Employee programs, we do have an increase in a line item of $80,000, and that is to return the tuition reimbursement program. It is going to be rewritten, and it will be we plan it to be a true reimbursement program. After they get their grades, we will reimburse them there will be specifics. We want all the colleges to make sure they're accredited and have a campus. So there will be some changes, but we do want to reinstate that if possible.
When you say have a campus, but they're still allowed to take online?
Oh, yes.
Please make sure they're real.
Yeah, we want to make sure that the employees receiving
Yeah,
the
the
true
real
benefit
thing,
of the
yeah.
education
Right.
and the degree
Okay.
as well.
Outside training, we did put in the budget the $35,000 that you all were generous enough to let us have this year for training, outside training for our employees, and that was for our Franklin Leadership University. We have several different proposals. We may not do a leadership university next year. We may do training for our leadership team and some of our directors and managers. But we do have proposals. We would like to keep that. We think it's an advantage to the city. Consulting services, we did increase that. We will retain our benefits consulting because it was a 3-year contract. We also wanted to do liability insurance consulting services for under $10,000. And then we have not done a comprehensive pay plan study. We did a small one about 4 years ago, Russ, and we have not done a comprehensive one since, I believe, 2003. We really need to do that and look at all of our salaries in comparison to each other. We have piecemealed it for several years, and I think we really need to look at it. Some may, well, they just need reclassifying and looking at, and the pay plan be more cohesive and comparable.
Well, considering that there may not be much pay increase, it seems to me that a pay plan study never decreases anyone's salary. So, just a thought to say that, considering there's not a lot of extra money, I don't know whether, this is...
One of my big concerns, and Russ and I have talked about this, and I think I've spoken with Eric, our minimum and our maximum, when we compare to other cities, look fabulous. Because we really normally have a lot higher maximum than anyone else. When you look at the penetration level of our employees, only 35% have reached midpoint and above. So we have an inflated pay scale. I don't necessarily say we do this to increase employees' pay. We just need to make it more realistic. I think even if we lowered the maximum and we lowered the range, I think it would look and make the employees feel better because they are moving up the scale, and it would be more realistic. If we compare to other cities, we look like we have the best pay anywhere because of our maximum. If we actually plot the employees' salaries or their averages, there's a big difference. And I talked today to Vernon about some of the positions, and we've got some that are in a pay grade 19 and some in a pay grade 17 that really the 19s have less responsibility than the 17s. When I say a comprehensive study, I just wish we could do one to really look at all of the jobs in comparison to each other within the departments.
I understand that, and I'm sure that
This would
in
also
in terms of the real world is probably right, but very honestly, nobody ever gets their pay decreased after one of these pay studies. So generally what happens is that the people that have the more responsibilities do get pay increases. And I'm just saying, I don't know if right now is a time to do that. Again, I understand what you're saying, and
also included in this would be to revisit the job descriptions and make sure they're accurate. So it's a total plan.
But still,
understand what you're
usually
saying, but-
whenever that happens, though, you're expecting to get more equity in the pay, as well as in the descriptions. I mean, to be honest with you, that's what usually comes
And
out
it
of
may
that.
very well come to that since we have only had this 2% raise in the last 3 years.
That's right.
You may be correct in that.
So are you looking at going from one pay scale to another, are you also in that study, would that adjust? Because what I was hearing you say, low end to high end, but in between there, if you have somebody in between going to another pay scale, are you adjusting the salaries within those? In other words, if someone got a 5,000 raise, we might adjust it to 4,000 or 5,500, or
No.
would this come into play at all? Are you talking about readjusting the levels?
Well, we have
Okay.
a minimum, a maximum, a midpoint, and then there's first quartile and third quartile.
Which
And
I
we-
haven't seen lately. It was used to be in our budget, but it hasn't been in there lately.
It's in
has
your
it?
budget every year.
I thought I looked for
It's
it,
in there.
though. No, I mean, really, because I teach that.
We just hit it better this year.
Okay.
It's in the appendix, I believe.
Yeah, it's one of the
That's what I
appendices.
thought, but
Yes.
then whenever I looked for it this time, I
It's-
couldn't find it because I was going to show it in my statistics.
It would not automatically increase anyone's pay.
Or decrease? or
No, we just
increase?
want, it might change
No,
their
but if
pay
I'm
grade.
Susie and I'm going to, Susie's going to get promoted or whatever, and I'm going to another position and say my increase might be 5,000 in that, just pick a number. Would, after the pay study, might it even it out and say, actually, that increase there would be 4,500?
Right. And currently, what we do
Those are
is.
dreams right now, I think.
5,500 more, you know?
What we do
more.
currently, if you get a
don't know.
raise, you
I'm
get
not sure what you're talking about.
7.5% for the first pay grade you go.
If you move a pay grade.
If you're a pay, if you get a
Oh,
promotion.
okay, yeah, right, let's talk.
If you
pay
get a
grades.
promotion and you're a pay grade 13 and you
Right.
go to a pay grade 16, you're going to get 7.5% to go to a pay grade 14, 2.5% more to go to 15, which is
Okay,
10%,
right, okay.
and 2.5% more to go
Go for it.
to the 50. Yeah, so and that's based on that. You can't be over the maximum and you can't be under the minimum.
And I guess it's just a good discipline and a good process to ensure that you have good internal comparability. So when that person gets that promotion and moves up 3 pay grades, they've taken on an appropriate additional amount of responsibilities, et cetera. So those are things that over time, as you look at different positions, can get out of whack, and it's a good discipline to go through comprehensively and look at that.
So how do they
And that's the thing we haven't done in 8, 9 years. That is good for us to consider
How do they
doing.
figure that out? Because of the way the job descriptions are written?
Right, and what we would do is have everybody.
consultant.
We would rewrite job descriptions. We would have the employee list what they do, their supervisor, their department director, then we would look at them.
Yeah.
And this year particularly, we've had several change job descriptions because they've not been looked at.
That's what I'm wondering, if you haven't done since 2003.
Well, we have a consultant that we use to send in every new job
Individual.
description. So no one says, well, HR liked them, so they got a pay grade 19, or they didn't, and so we send it to them.
Keeps it
And we're
outside.
usually very close. However, this year, we have, on several jobs, sent back very comparable jobs in other departments back to them and said, I know you looked at it in the market, but would you look at it within the city? And then they come back differently because we've piecemealed and we've not looked at the whole
Okay.
plan. And that was,
I see what-
that's my suggestion. And actually, we have sent some in this year and they've gone down pay grades.
But not for an individual, not for an existing employee.
We actually have.
Yes.
Now,
reduce-
now they ended
But you
up,
reduce someone's pay?
we did not because they ended up staying within the range. That the ranges overlap enough
Right.
that you can have a situation where somebody's pay grade went down, so their maximum is not as high as it used to be, but they're able to stay within the range, so we didn't
And actually,
bring
they were
somebody
at
down.
first quartile or below. So if we had lowered them, it would have been, we couldn't have lowered them as much as we were supposed to and them still be in the range, so.
Well, as I say, just
Yeah,
from,
Yeah.
just from experience, I can tell you generally what happens is that some people get pay raises to be equitable. I mean, to be equitable, let's be basic, but it still means more money. You know.
What is that experience you're comparing to with Shirley, just out of curiosity?
Columbia State has had at least 2 times in the last probably 10 or 15 years, studies like
Have
this.
you done the HR studies and been involved with it? I guess I'm trying to
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from. 'cause-
Well, let me tell you, I definitely have studied what they did both of those times and made a presentation to the president about some of the things. So it was something that, I was probably president of the faculty senate one of the times, and the entire faculty was asking questions about it. So I did wind up probably studying it more than anybody, unless they were one of the people that was on the committee. And to be very honest with you, the people that were on the committee didn't know anything about math or economics. And so it turned out to be something that some of us, the economists and the mathematicians and the business people did look at it after they'd done it. So,
But I think we need to look at it.
oh, I know,
because
I understand, I
Our employees need to
understand.
be,
yeah,
I think
and
that
equity,
what I'm
the
trying
equity
to
part
do-
of it is, yes.
I just think it is important to look
I
at
do
it.
too.
And I think that you are our HR director, and you've looked at it, and I appreciate Alderman Peterson's comments that she has a lot of experience with it. I don't think you're willing to do it.
No, wait, I'm just saying, from the experience that I have seen is that, you know, people don't get decreases in salary, and virtually every move that I've ever known about has been an increase in salary. Again, it was because of equity. I mean, you know, in other words, it was because of fairness that they did that.
and we will do surveys when we do this with other cities, as we do each year. I have several surveys that we participate in. But I think we definitely want our employees comparable to other cities. I know we used to say we wanted to be 5% above the average, but we want them comparable because we don't want to lose our qualified, good employees to another city at a similar job.
But, you know, my point is that when I said the experience is that it's meant more money that was required. And as I say, as far as I know, they've been reasonable and fair and equitable changes, because as I say, they didn't decrease anyone's salary. It just means that there's more money that's needed from it there. And that.
But employees are our most valuable asset, so we do need to look at those.
Hey, let me tell you, this is the person that has had one pay raise in like 7 years.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say to you is that that's right. That's pretty awful,
You get to a
isn't
point
it?
where you don't have a choice.
That's right, you don't have a choice.
I may not be there then.
Well, but then,
No,
you know,
you're
maybe
right.
there are not other jobs opening up for those things either, not everybody's.
It's going to be an item
But
to
again,
vote on.
this is.
Ultimately, yes.
That's right.
I mean, are we going to pull it out and vote on it, just this one entity? If not,
Well,
I'm ready to
yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Capital, I'm going to have Candace address that. She's been working on it.
For over a year now, we've been looking at a HRIS system, a software system that would benefit all city departments, our managers, our leadership team, even all of our applicants. Right now, we just don't have a comprehensive HR software program. And we think that, you know, that's a great need, not only for us, but just citywide as well. And we have been looking at, you know, just doing, you know, the cost and benefit of such a system, and going through each one of our processes and seeing how much of it could be automated, how much that would save in labor and time. And we really think that we could, you know, save about $100,000 a year in HR and benefits just by automating some of our processes. Last year when we presented our budget, I think we told you that when there's an employee has a change of address, we have to manually make that change 6 different times. You know, so there's a lot of efficiency improvements that would come with this.
We have
Also,
14 spreadsheets that we do for every new hire. We enter them
14.
because we don't have a comprehensive system.
and we have to update information with every one of our insurance carriers. We don't have any type of really employee or manager self-service. So we're very limited in that. And we really think it could benefit all employees and also our applicants. If you look, you know, we usually have about 3,000 applicants a year. Well, right now, we're averaging 125 days to fill an external vacancy. You know, really, that should be more of 30 to 40 days to fill a vacancy. And it's because we have to manually process each application that comes through. We don't have a tracking system that allows us to pre-screen candidates, to send out automatic notifications to them to let them know where they are in the process.
We manually send a notification to every applicant that, you know, they're going to be interviewed or thank them for their application, but they weren't selected for interviews. If they interview and didn't get it, then we send letters out to every one of those, but it's manually. And if we have applications from 2 months ago and we have a similar job in another department, we have no way to query. We have to go back manually through all the applications. We have no way to put the applications in and query. So screening for HR analysts, we had around 300. So we manually went through 300 apps. And I know we're running over time, so.
Well, and also just to let you know, in talking with finance and with IT, if we get an HR system, they would also like to see a new payroll system and home and attendance system that would be, you know, a lot of the systems will be compatible with our current systems, but they'd really like to have it all under, you know, one vendor. So.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the objectives for the MIT department was we strive to provide city employees the hardware and software necessary to perform their duties in an efficient manner by keeping the hardware operational and software updated with the latest changes when possible. And I certainly think this is a case where that would certainly apply, and we would want to do that. I mean, you all are managing everybody in the city. And I can't imagine that you don't have the equipment to do that. So I would certainly be in favor of implementing this that you're asking.
And HR has been working as a team, working with IT as well to look at both what we have and our existing capabilities as well as other softwares that are out there. And I think point two is how it connects into our payroll system, et cetera.
And including payroll.
Yeah, exactly. So that these pieces integrate and work together. It's a big issue. It's a big cost item as well. So we're going to need to work on it.
I saw that.
But it's a long-term need we need to improve on and get better on.
And this is very unusual that a city this size doesn't have one. I mean, when I came here from Murray County, we had one that did all of this, and we're as far as progression, we seem to be ahead of them.
I would certainly support this all.
Thank you. And it is an ongoing process. We don't have one that we could buy tomorrow. We're looking, but we do.
And you're expecting, is that what the $500,000 is on capital, or is
That's an estimate of the full implementation cost of a software program. It's a pretty rough number still, and we're still refining all this and looking at options. So that's kind of a placekeeper number, but it's in that ballpark that we'll need to consider long term.
Okay, whatever you do, make sure that you talk to anybody else that's using these things and make sure you get the right.
We will.
They've been doing a lot of benchmarking.
You know, we've had things in the past where we go,
why did we buy this? We want to go look at them, talk to the individuals using them.
Right. Absolutely.
It almost seemed to me like MIT should be doing this. Am I wrong?
They're working with IT staff.
I know you said that.
They're working with us, but everything I've read,
Gotta have the program.
and we just got back from Convergence, we would say we're HR and then start showing us payroll and some financial. We need to work together as a team. They need to know what's compatible and tell us from the informational technology, but we need to be very much involved in what we need so we get all the components.
So you gotta have both the
Right,
user
yeah.
and the technical experts on
right.
how the pieces fit together. And that's what we're doing with
And
this.
IT has been wonderful working with us. We have,
We've been meeting every week.
so, they've been great.
We can relate to that.
You wanted to do this, remember?
Are there?
I've got a couple of
Yes.
questions. Shirley, you mentioned earlier that between our maximum and minimum, that our people seem to be more,
Below midpoint.
but below the
Generally,
midpoint.
yeah.
What would you think is the reason? What's,
Honestly, in the past, when raises, and once again, Russ and I have discussed this, when raises have been given or if they've had a study, they raise all those. Instead of just raising the employee, if they need to be, they'll
because
raise
it's a
the
cost of living
minimum,
raise
the
instead of
maximum.
The
within
range will
grade.
move when the
Yeah.
employee's salary moves too, so they don't necessarily progress within the range
Okay.
as much as you might think.
And every time we give a cost of living adjustment, or every time we give a market
The whole thing
adjustment,
shifts,
we
yeah.
don't necessarily need to move the whole thing, because that's the pay compression issue that we've had, a lot of people upset, and I think we've worked on that and helped it, but they hired entry-level police and fire, just use those two. Then they keep moving the entry-level amount,
I see
so
what you
people
mean.
hired 3 and 4 years later
Making
come
almost-
in at what these are just now at, because they've raised it every year. So we don't necessarily need to raise the entry and the maximum, because it just gets further away as we're going.
Okay.
And I think we just need to look at it and compare it to other places and,
And we haven't adjusted ranges in several
Right.
years at this point.
Is it still the case that the new hires are getting as much money as the people that have been here?
no.
I didn't think so. And that's not happening
But
right
for
now.
years,
But for years it
it
did.
did.
But again, but not now.
And that's the reason I think that less than 35% have reached midpoint, because midpoint is a moving target as well, or has been in the past. And we were beginning to work on that when the economy fell. We were looking
Right,
at people
right.
that had been here 8 years and raising them to the midpoint if they've been in that position. So,
And I don't want to get off point, but I don't think there's any question that the pension contributions have absorbed a lot of
That's
the money
true.
that could have gone
right.
into payroll to address some of those adjustments that needed to be made.
Thank you for
Yes,
saying
good
that.
point.
That I'm sure that's.
That's been a factor, not the only
Oh,
factor,
yes.
but it's
No,
been a factor.
yes.
The other question was about the tuition assistance program. Do we have very specific guidelines about how it has to be related to the job that they're going to do or might be qualified to do within the city? Because if they apply for, if they get educated in something that there's no future in the city, then
We did make those changes, some changes 2 years ago. Eric has asked that we rewrite the policy again. MTAS had put out a survey, so I have several cities that have sent in what they're doing and their tuition policy. So, as Russ says, still madly, don't reinvent the wheel, just we're going to look at best practices and take the best things from that. And yes, we definitely want it specific to their job or to a job within the city.
Yeah, we want to look at what other good policies provide for. One of the things, having implemented one of these programs fresh several years ago, you really want the departmental director to sign off on that this is job-related, this makes sense for what they're doing or what their likely career path is to be, so that there's sort of a buy-in from the leadership in that department as well as that individual employee, and so that it kind of works its way all the way through. We want to look at that we're making sure that they're getting degrees from institutions that are accredited, that fit those definitions appropriately, and looking at how to best define that so that not only our dollars are going into a good investment, but our employees aren't wasting their time on a degree that isn't meaningful.
Right.
And so that's to everybody's benefit that we're doing that together. And so that's the kind of thing I would like HR to work on in this revamped program and policies related to it.
Is there a commitment required from the employee that they would stay here for a certain period after this
The
is?
new policy includes that.
Okay.
And actually, the old policy had it, but they had never
Enforced.
it. So we, 2 years ago, changed it where they had to sign off that they agreed to do that, or they would pay back the city X amount of it. You know, if they left a year later, they paid back a certain amount. If they left 2 years, they, so yes, we do have that incorporated.
That's all.
And we have collected on it.
We have,
Yes, we
had some
have, we
situations where
actually
that's happened.
have. The last thing is total machinery under 25,000. We do have a vehicle listed for our occupational health and safety trainer, which would be training all over the city. And that's very similar to police and fire departments trainers that train within their department. And they do have vehicles, but this would allow this person to travel to the other departments with the training equipment.
Let me have Shirley just highlight real quick or comment on one of the other real accomplishments over this last year has been our self-insured status and workers' compensation. And Shirley and her team brought that forward last year, and the board went forward with that. But we have a premium of over $600,000 in the current general fund budget. We're tracking to spend maybe $250,000 to $300,000 in that area, so it's doing exactly what we thought it might do. One of the things we're going to do as a discipline this year is we budgeted for that premium, but we're going to put the unspent portion of that premium into additional reserve to help provide for if something happens down the line. Yeah, so because we know, many years we're going to have years like this, but there will likely be someday the bad year where we have more than we would have spent in premium or something like that. So we want to have adequate reserves in place to help deal with that. So I just wanted to highlight that as a real success story, and that it's done exactly what we thought it would do. And we've raised the level of awareness among departments about safety and training issues, and that'll only get better as we bring the trainer on board that was part of this budget, that is in part funded by the savings that we're realizing through the program. So all of that is really showing progress, and that's great to see in just year one of the program. So.
And just so you'll know, we got our dental quote yesterday, and our actual, we're self-funded on that. It is going up, like the admin fee, like 6 cents an employee per month, but our funding level is going down about $8 per employee per month. So that is good news on that. Our medical insurance, they're estimating, and we will not have firm numbers until they get our April actuals in. They're saying the maximum increase would be 6%, but it could be as low as 4.9. That's really good for medical insurance though this year. So.
I'm sure. Anybody have any other comments or questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Budget presentation from the law department.
I have a annual report to give you guys. It's really only up for the past 9 months. We'll give you another one at the end of July. And then I don't know if you guys got the most recent.
Just the write-up.
The write-up. Thank you. Mike sent me an email to have copies, so I went ahead and The annual report just really kind of focuses on what the law department's been doing for the past year. You guys can take your time and read it. What departments we're working on, what kind of things we've been doing, how many tasks we've been working on.
That's one tree less.
And we'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have. One of the most important things, I guess, in the law department this year is we brought on Sam Cross, We had a part-time administrative assistant, and we reclassified that last year to a full-time paralegal, and we brought on Sam Cross, and he's been here since August. And he's been a great asset to the law department. And on the narrative that you guys have, pretty much everything's the same. We did put some measurements and goals on there. It shows as of 4/15 how many ordinances and resolutions we've reviewed and drafted, contracts reviewed and drafted. But as of last week, Mr. Stuckey has created a new process for putting things on the agendas, and now we're supposed to have them into the department by Friday close of business, which will really help the law department because that'll give us 2 or 3 days to kind of come up to speed with what contracts and ordinances departments are wanting on the agenda, and we will have time to pull them if we didn't look at them before you guys get to see them. So we're hoping to look at every single one. We do 12 law notes. Law notes are just legal issues that may make sense or may be important to our directors. Sometimes it's focused really on one department, but other departments may be interested in reading it, and we send those out at least once a month.
Sometimes if we see a case that's come down from a Tennessee court or another court in the country that we think is interesting, then we'll do a law note on that.
Or a new law, if a new law went into effect on a certain day that we think the department directors need to know about, we'll send that out. And as far as the budget goes, our budget is very, very similar to last year. We changed 2 things. The first thing we changed was under transcription fees. Last year we budgeted $2,500. Since then we've asked for an amendment up to $4,000. But this year we're going to ask for a $5,000 line item for court reporter fees. And that's because we have a court reporter for every personnel appeal that we have. And some years we don't know how many appeals we'll have. This year in particular we had a lot. And so we have to pay court reporter fees for that. In addition, we've had several hearings in regard to the Hunter lawsuit. And because that's our motions, we've had to pay for those court reporter fees. But I think that $5,000 is better to have a buffer for court reporter fees. You just never know how many times you're going to have that done in a year. And the other thing we changed just a little bit was dues for membership. We just put in $400 more, I think. And that's mostly because when Sam came in, he's a law student, and we are paying for his TBA dues. And that's part of his employment. We need him to be a Tennessee Bar member. And Kristen has become a lawyer, and she's joining some associations, which I think will be very beneficial to the city. Those are the 2 only changes, other than a little bit in the benefits, but and in the personnel. But that's their job. I don't touch all that. That's what they do.
One of the things we've done over the last year or so has been to consolidate all the legal services. You'll look at that, you'll see that line item, which has $60,000 in it. It's a little bit like the transcription. We don't know how much we're going to need in a given year, but one of the things we did do is consolidate that at a previous budget, but it's continued on. We used to have it in little pockets across various departments, and this way it's in one place. It also ensures that our city attorney and staff is looking at that and aware of the work that outside counsel is doing for us, reviewing those bills, making sure the work is approved, consistent with the direction provided by the city overall. And so I think that works well and helps us better manage the outside legal services. And you'll look, we're tracking well below that number right now, which is a good thing. But again, you never know what's going to drive that and our need to have outside counsel as well.
And that would be a big part of the difference, whenever you're looking at estimated and the requested budget.
Yeah, that's a big part of that.
Right. What about the, what was that? Oh, publications and non-training. What is that about? It's $12,000.
That actually includes our Westlaw monthly
Yes.
subscription, which is how we do all our research.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Is that
They don't
gone
have a
up?
library anymore, do you?
No, they don't have a library.
Has that gone up?
It did, and it usually goes up a little bit every year, so we just up it a little bit every year.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much.
Is that totally online?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's
That's
totally
right,
online.
yes.
But that way, whenever a director comes in and says, we really need to see the code on this, we can pull it up along with all the cases and give it to them really easy.
Make sure it's up to date to that.
Yeah.
That's right. That's another good thing, isn't it?
And we'll be putting a litigation status in your mailbox, the attorney-client privilege. You'll have every case that's still ongoing and what the status is.
Thanks for the.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take a look at that.
We hope it's on a small piece of paper.
Yes, thank you, appreciate that comment.
Look at this. The task bar chart is pretty impressive for a 3-person office, I'll tell you.
Okay. Our next one then will be the budget presentation from the administration department.
I've got a brief presentation. It's got a few slides on it, and I'll ask if we could pull that up and try to move through that as a summary level, and hopefully that'll help address questions and give you an overview of where we are. The first one is our expenditure history on the group of administrative areas that are in the administrator's office, including our administration, the CIP area, and communications. When you look at those collectively, I'd highlight just a couple adjustments because it's largely a status quo budget. We are shifting one position. We should have mentioned it when we were talking about human resources, but we are shifting an existing human resources administrative position to help us staff the front desk that we constructed out here in City Hall. We want to provide a regular presence out there to welcome people, give them direction, help be somebody that helps welcome people into City Hall and help provide better customer service. And so we are looking at moving an existing position out there. I think that'll be a big improvement, but we want to have that person, I think that fits better to have that person in administration to help provide the support they need to give general information to the public, and that we help support them. That's also where the general phone calls will ring into, and they'll take those calls and help direct those to the
For
appropriate
HR?
departments.
Or just
This
general?
person will be out in the desk,
So
but
Mary
will
Ann's
work in
not gonna
administration.
have to do this?
Well, it may still bounce to administration from time to time, but
Yeah,
the first stop will be in that area. So that's what we're looking at. I think that will be an improvement.
Stop shopping.
Yeah, that will be an improvement in the service we provide overall. And so that is a shift of an existing position, so it does create a little bit of personnel growth in the administration
Can I
category.
ask you about them as well? They'll be answering the phone and everything, but they'll have other things going on.
We'll have them with a phone and a computer out there. They'll be able to do
Other work.
work, but it'll need to be work that they can be quickly distracted from and take that call or greet that citizen that comes in. And anybody who's stood out in that hallway for more than a couple minutes, you will run into somebody that needs
have
direction
directed
to go
people, that's
somewhere.
right.
So
I drove
we need
somebody in the
to.
county admin building. the other day. Yes.
So we need to help provide that and meet that need.
Literally.
And so that's been a small investment to put that desk there, but I think it'll be a big customer service improvement. So that's a change that's encompassed in this budget, in this proposed budget at this point, or actually it's our request for what goes in the proposed budget later in the year. And CIP, that's again pretty status quo. You'll see a reduction in personnel there. We are unfunding a part-time administrative position. We had an employee leave recently and have chosen not to fill that position, and plan to leave that unfunded in the new budget, and that's what's been requested at this point. You'll see communications is essentially status quo with the budget that we currently have as well. So collectively, that administrative grouping is growing about $11,000, and the budget request are 1%. So, and that includes the shift of an existing position from one department into our area. So that's what's included there. I'll jump to our facilities and project management. And this shows a larger jump in the request area as you look at it. Not in personnel. Personnel is essentially flat. But in operations and capital, and again, these are budget requests, so these are areas that have been identified. And one of the things we've done in facilities and project management is we have continued to consolidate more facility needs, whether it's at the police headquarters or some of our other buildings outside of just City Hall, to really bring that under one central area where Brad and his team can look at those needs and address those needs. One of the other areas also in operations is we're looking at some targeted areas where we might use some contractual services to help us bring in a certain skill for a project for a short period of time and then move on from that. We find that works better for us than trying to hire staff in certain cases. So it's a little bit like the facilities equivalent to what Fred Banner talked about in IT. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to hire that. It makes more sense to find a contractual relationship, get the skills you need for a certain period of time, and then, yeah, so, and that is targeted at what your need is. And then there are some various capital project needs that have been operating capital project needs that facilities and project management have identified. Again, those will be reviewed. This is at the request stage, so we're still looking at what we're going to be able to do within our existing budget parameters. On to the next one, we have two areas that we're highlighting. City Court, which is essentially a status quo operating budget, but actually goes down a little bit, goes down about $13,000 in budget there. And then revenue management, which has a blip up in growth in terms of personnel, but what we've done there is, as you know, we were implementing a customer relations software and utility billing program upgrade that the board approved last year and are in that implementation process with that. Steve Sims has been assigned to that project directly, and his direct involvement in that is saving us literally hundreds of thousands of dollars because he's really managing that project on an ongoing basis. And so while he's working on that, we've moved Clay Matthews into that position to provide the oversight to our revenue management customer service area. So you've really got two managers that are in that budget that weren't originally anticipated when that budget was adopted originally. So it sort of shifts costs around, but again, existing employees, but they're shifted among departments to help us adjust to this need and really this opportunity. There is one additional position in particular proposed in revenue management, and that is the creation of an accounting officer that would specifically help manage the loans that are outstanding for sanitary sewer assessment projects. We have now over 600 potentially outstanding loans with residents that are in assessment districts, and we need to take care and manage those accounts as well. So what's been proposed or requested here is the creation of that position to help manage those, effectively deal with the customer interaction and any issues related to those.
Is that full-time?
It is a full-time position. So that's also included in this request. One of the things we've done in this department also in particular is we've shifted around and used more part-time positions to help us stretch our dollars in terms of personnel dollars, but also be able to be more flexible in staffing up for peak needs, et cetera. And so that's been an ongoing theme and something we continue to work with. The last page just sort of gives some of the highlights, a number of which we've already talked about, but I think that are the key adjustments in this budget request compared to where we were in this budget and in prior years. Moving an administrative position from HR to administration to staff the front desk welcome area here in City Hall. The new utility billing software and customer relationship software that's being implemented, that will continue, and we look for implementation around midway through the fiscal year as we move forward. Continued strategic use of part-time employees, we talked about that. One of the things that they don't have a bullet on is that accounting officer position that will help us work with the over 600 loans that are outstanding related to sanitary sewer assessment projects. And then what we've done overall in terms of cost containment, if you look at it, we've made a number of reductions in overtime, outstanding outside services and contracts, travel and training. We've all brought those down while maintaining the I think, an appropriate level of giving our people opportunities to develop skills and keep up to breast with what's going on in their areas of expertise. And then we've been very limited in what we've done in equipment and capital purchasing. And we do continue to carry an unfunded administrative assistant position within administration as well. So that's an overview of that department group. We've got experts here in terms of those various areas here if you have specific questions that they can help address, but we're glad to take any questions you have.
What's the unfunded administrative assistant position?
We have an administrative assistant position that actually we previously filled a vacancy in finance with that individual and have held that position vacant and unfunded over the last 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So we kind of shifted around to fill another vacancy and then did not refill.
The accounting position for the assessments, why is that in administration instead of, say, sewer and water?
It's really in revenue management, the customer service area out here, which is now overseen by administration. So it's really in that revenue management. The folks that deal with billing and billing questions is sort of the interface with the revenue that flows in, which is the monthly payments on those loans. So it seems to be a good match with that in terms of an oversight and control area.
I guess the question is, would enterprise fund for sewer and water prevent that from?
Well, the sewer and water actually pays for it in the long run because we build the water and sewer enterprise fund for
that position.
Those
the
types
position.
of administrative.
Organizationally, you've got it there, but you're billing.
You need to have that
I got it.
person there where the billing is done, because they're coming in to pay their water bills, they're calling in, and these first couple of years are going to be, it's going to be a rocky road, getting people comfortable with what's coming out on those assessment district bills. And there's a lot of them, and they're very different. Each one is just a little bit different term, different interest rates, et cetera.
And y'all have that added into this, right? So what?
Yes, that's incorporated in there.
So what's the cost of that individual?
It shows like a 70,000.
Collectively, it's around, it's maybe $40,000 to $50,000. Yeah, somewhere in that range. Plus, we've got the additional staffing that we've done with shifting Mr. Matthews over and still paying for Mr. Sims' position as well. So that's
We're
what's kind of
double,
bumped up
yeah.
that personnel cost when you look at collectively what we've done.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Is that position, as Russ said, would be funded essentially out of the enterprise funds, out of the sewer fund. But it's important to understand that of the 600 that we're talking about is that a lot of that is out of the Grassland Meadowgreen sewer. And we're going to see 25,000 or so revenue stream in addition. So a lot of the funding for that will be covered from that.
Okay.
And that'll
Good
be a
point.
revenue we'll take in.
Good point.
Okay,
In the general fund as well.
right. It won't be coming from our enterprise
Right.
fund. It will be coming from an enterprise fund,
someplace
but
else.
not ours.
Not ours.
But not ours. Okay,
Any
other-
other questions we can answer?
okay, then, finance and purchasing.
I know Russ will have some comments as well, but one of the things that happened in the finance department this year is we actually had 2 vacancies occur. And what we found out is that once we had those vacancies, we actually did the cliche, we actually produced more with less. What happened is essentially everyone learned some of the things that maybe they had never had the opportunity before to learn. So by being less segmented, we actually now would like to, in the 2012 budget, actually go ahead and make this part of our staffing. So instead of having 11 approved positions, we would actually like to step it back down to 9. And it is actually something that is sustainable, because the one thing about our department is we actually currently have 4 staff members that are pursuing a certified municipal officer certification. Essentially the same thing that was designed for finance directors. We actually have 4 staff members progressing through that certification. And as far as I'm aware, I believe all of them have already made substantial progress, or at least have made progress. And so the thing is, I feel like we actually are doing more with less. I would actually like to make that request for 9 personnel. Out on the slide, I actually have another note or two that basically about the career path, because the one thing we would like to do is by maybe having these experienced and knowledgeable staff members actually have a career path develop where basically they will go from one position to potentially a higher position, and basically that way not only are they benefiting personally, but we're also benefiting as a department, because by them being able to do more of those tasks, it's actually helped us. And the one item we do have in the budget, kind of on a capital basis, is we would like to actually get a color copier in the budget, because we know that some of the reporting we're doing, we actually want to make it more formal. And the thing, it's for the committee, for BOMA, as well as other external parties. So the thing is, it's kind of like those are really the 3 main things we have in the finance budget. But I just knew that it was really one that we really found that we were accomplishing what we needed to do, and it seemed like, we were making progress and it was sustainable.
I want to compliment Russ and Mike for developing this career path. It's something we talked about a year ago, and they really followed through on doing it. It ties right into the certification system that's been set up in the state, and so it really makes for an opportunity for our folks to not only cross-train but get that certification. And as they take those progressive steps, we reward them. And that's how we're able to do what we used to do with 11 or more employees, we're now going to be able to do with 9, and we think more effectively. So I want to compliment them for that step and for really following through to provide that, and I think that's been well received by the employee team as well.
You have please come up.
Are they paying for their own education?
The city is paying for it, and that's actually within the budget. So if you actually look under professional development, some of our professional development budget has gone up, but we actually are paying for that participation in that certification.
I would add that it's a very nominal charge.
Yes.
Because it's the entire program is run by MTAS, based on material and testing prepared by the Comptroller's office. So it's $75 a day is what it boils down to, and that really covers the rental of the building and the meal.
So if they get this education and they will become certified, then you say there's something in our contract that they will have to stay.
No, this is not like tuition reimbursement. This is more of a training and certification process that the employees go through, and then as they reach certain thresholds, we'll move them from a financial technician 1 to a financial technician 2, and that may include we'll need to go through the pay grade process, but it would likely mean they'd go from a pay grade 12 to a pay grade 13.
So we wouldn't pay for their education and then they go to national.
This is a certification as opposed to them getting a degree that we've paid tuition for. It's a little different, but
And is it not just kind of like for government
Exactly.
entities and everything?
Yes.
It's not going to prepare them to go to. That's right, that's right.
Targeted is the right word. It is absolutely targeted on what every finance director or assistant finance director needs to know to operate in the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, specifically within the state.
And that's what makes these employees so valuable, is by having that knowledge.
That's fine. We don't want to become valuable to somebody else.
Understood.
But it would need to be
no,
another.
it's very
It would need to be
specific to
another
government.
government, right?
To government,
Yeah.
That's always the risk you take. You want to give your people all the tools you can.
They cover budgeting, governmental financial reporting, they cover governmental personnel, they cover a lot of topics like that.
Okay, very good, okay. Let's see now.
You did note that the finance budget actually went down.
I was going to say.
Just want to make sure that everybody
The other department that's within this agenda item is purchasing, and I know our purchasing manager was not able to attend tonight,
So we can cut his budget.
The 2 points he did ask maybe Russ and I to cover is he actually may have a potential new staff member as a purchasing analyst. So that's currently right now in there. It's just essentially assist in the purchasing process. They have 2 staff members now, so that would actually be a 3rd member of that department. And the second item is he's been looking at e-procurement software, and he's kind of got a preliminary estimate that it could be around $20,000. So that's something that he's also kind of done some investigating and knows that there's benefits in the way we procure items by potentially having this software.
And in looking at this, we anticipate savings that would offset the cost. For example, on the software, vendors would be able to register online, and we would not have to go through some of the process that we have to do now to spend money advertising to seek out bidders on some of the things that we have. As far as the analyst and the extra help, Brian is a very talented person and spends a lot of time doing fairly mundane things that are required to do. He almost single-handedly keeps up with our purchasing card program, which has saved us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars just in bank fees by eliminating paper checks. We do so many things now electronically. I mean, we're approaching a point where about 80% of the transactions are done electronically and very few paper checks. And if we could get the construction business on board, we could probably get up to 95.
That's fine. I hear a lot of technology being requested from different departments, and that's fine. I'm sure they're needed. But I don't want anything to take precedence over that HR business, because they are hurting, I'm sure. If they've got all those 14 spreadsheets.
Can you believe that?
Lord, I don't know how they do it. And so this all is fine, but I would certainly want us to put that at the top of our list.
That seems really inefficient, if nothing else.
I don't want to overstate the case, but the investments that have been made in technology over the last 5 or 10 years saved us during this downturn, because we went with 40 and 50 unfilled positions, and we're mostly still there. And if we had not had the additional productivity from our telephone, mundane things like our radio and our telephone system. Fred didn't mention it about the flyover, but I can't tell you how helpful the GIS mapping was during the flood. I mean, we have tools that we haven't even really begun to use to their fullest extent. But it's an investment. It's very expensive. It's often problematic as far as keeping up with it and maintaining it. But in many ways, it's saving us in not only in money, but in time and positions that we would have to have otherwise. So, I would encourage you to support as many of these technological things and software things that we are able to afford. Problem is, we can't afford all of them.
That's the challenge.
That's the challenge.
And we just have to prioritize and pick the ones that we can work with and the ones that mean the most.
I will give one clarification. Brian is not here because he is part of a meeting in Nashville with his professional association related to governmental purchasing agents. And he is a leader in that professional association, and they're having a meeting tonight. And we said, well, Mike and Russ will help carry the day while you go take care of that, and we won't cut your budget right now.
We'll wait till he gets back.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm so proud that he's initiated this credit card program, and that traditionally there have been major problems in these things in other locations, and the fact that he personally keeps up with that, I think, it speaks a lot.
It works very well for us.
Well, all of the programs have the right tools. It boils down to the management of it, and he's done an excellent job.
Okay, is that, okay, are we ready to go
Ready
to
for yours?
elected officials? Elected officials.
Yours is pretty straightforward. It's essentially a continuation budget with the exception of the election. We have a $50,000 bill that comes due to pay for the election. And so that's really the only item that changes in this budget outside of what we're doing with the general shifts in benefit costs.
We're paying for one less alderman here until October. We should see some.
Yeah, actually, our estimate should go down a little bit. So, yeah, you guys will probably come in under budget. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you about, I don't see anything on here, am I missing it? We're gonna, we possibly could, but we're gonna have at least one new alderman. But, I remember when I first got elected and I went to MTAS and all those classes were great.
Yeah, we've got.
Very helpful, so